Welcome to the City of Lansing Community Forum, hosted by the Human Relations and Community Service Department. My name is Amy, and today we'll be doing a brief overview of the grant application process and what to expect and how to complete that.
We're excited to bring everybody together after the pandemic. Most of us haven't been able to meet via virtually. We see this as an opportunity to share with the community how they may access the city's human services funds. Most of everything that they're going to have access to here, they will also have access to via the city's website. And they may also call the office and speak with anybody with regard to any questions that they may have or any clarity that might be needed. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am Tim Coleman, and I serve as Director of the City of Lansing Human Relations and Community Services Department. And it is indeed an honor for me to stand before you all this morning. On behalf of Mayor Shore and the HRCS team, we are thrilled to have you all here for our 2023 Community Forum, and it is awesome to be able to see everybody face to face. We haven't done this in a couple of years. I think I've been with the city for about 3 years, and each year that I've been here, it's always been virtually. So it's really nice to be able to put faces and names together and to see your bright, smiling faces this morning, and we look forward to moving this program forward. I want to express my gratitude to you for the work that you do and the many lives that you all touch. Despite the challenges and opportunities many of us have faced over the years, you continue to be committed to the process and to the work that you do, and persistent year after year to ensure that all of our city residents have their basic needs met. For this, our community and our citizens are grateful, and again, we thank you. A very, very special thank you to the HRCS team who helped us pull this off. They worked so diligently with the agencies, and they are very committed to making sure that the process goes as seamlessly as possible and that you get the support and information that you need in order to move your grants forward. I would ask that they would stand or in their places and wave their hands so that you know who they are and where they are. Good job. Most of you are aware that the City of Lansing uses 1.35% of its general fund revenues to fund a diverse range of human services. In partnership with, we do this work in partnership with local agencies to forge solutions wherever it is needed. We're pleased to use these funds to help support a network of city neighborhood centers to connect neighbors to food pantries, farmers markets, and to link people with health care and employment, and engage our youth, elderly, and our newcomers to our country, providing business incubators for entrepreneurs. We sponsor youth mentoring programs, we provide city support for homeless outreach and shelters, we address domestic violence, substance use recovery, mental health programs, free and low-cost medical clinics, legal services, and a whole lot more, you all. And so we look forward to seeing what you have, what you want to bring to the table, and what services that you feel would help best meet the needs of the folks in our community. These are just a few examples of the basic needs city human services grants support. And although city funds may make up a very small part of the agency's budgets, they are essential to attracting county, state, and federal funding into our region and to address complex community issues. Thank you all for pulling together all these resources to help our citizens. This year, we look forward to supporting human service agencies and programs that meet the following criteria. And you all can see there from the screen that there's not a whole lot, but I will tell you that we're looking at agencies that demonstrate an operational capacity, financial and human resources capacity are necessary to implement the proposed program or service and a strategic plan to sustain programming after HRCS funding expires. We're looking at agencies that are previous grantees that must have performance and contract and compliance history that has demonstrated timelessness and accuracy in reporting, expenditure of funds consistent with contract budget, successful completion of contract objectives, and evidence of achieving projected outcomes. Agencies must provide human services such as basic needs, life skills, employability development, and mental health services as outlined within each category listed. Agencies must meet community needs, identification of community needs, and successful implementation of services to address identified needs. Agencies must demonstrate Lansing resident focus. We will only support City of Lansing programs and services that are going to benefit the City of Lansing citizens. We must offer services primarily designed to address the needs of City of Lansing residents. And so that's just to give you an idea of what it is that we're looking at. And if there aren't any specific questions at this time, I will turn the podium over to Amy. And again, I say thank you because together we can move just a little bit closer to a future where healing, equity, opportunities, and quality services are accessible to everyone. Thank you. Amy?
Good morning. Like Dr. Director Coleman said, my name is Amy. I am a contract manager with HRCS. The last slide, we mentioned that the applicants must demonstrate that there is a Lansing residents focused and that programs must offer services primarily designed to address the needs of the City of Lansing residents. So we have up a spotlight first on Ingham County. There's just a few things that I wanted to point out on that slide. The current population as of the data that was collected by MLPP was that we have a population in Ingham of 285,660 with a median household salary of $58,226. The poverty level for Ingham is 18%, with 17% of that being families with children, 19% with families with children under the age of 18, and 39% of those being single parent families. The median wage for men is $55,275, while women is $45,454. And then 21% of the residents in Ingham have an income for the household of under $25,000. And then we have 58% as owners. For Lansing, on the next slide, there we go. We have the population as 108,602, and the median household income for Lansing is 46,559, which is a stark difference from the 58,000 for Ingham County. Our poverty level is at 22%, 4% higher than Ingham, and then 30% of our families, or 30% of those are families with children. 32% of those are children that are under 18, and then 47% is single-family households. The median wage for men in Lansing is only $44,983, while it's $39,020 for women. 25% of our residents in Lansing have an income of under $25,000, and 52% of our residents are owner-occupied. Next, we'll go over the application itself, which is what we're going to focus on right now is what is new and what will be familiar for prior applicants. For what's new, the governance documents that was previously within each application is now going to be on the profile. So you won't have to submit those documents for every single application if you have multiple programs. We're also asking that the third point of contact be provided. We've had instances where we've not been able to contact anyone from the agencies, and so we're asking for a third point. Prior awardees must report an overview of the program and how it was beneficial, what could have been improved. Quarterly reports are due even if all funds are spent in a year. So we want to see the program and how it's working throughout the year, even if you're not continuing using those funds, if they've been used up. We will be scheduling in-person monitoring this year. And then individuals employed by the city of Lansing can no longer be a board member of your organization. What is still familiar is there is still a nonprofit requirement. The city of Lansing still does not fund any project or program at 100%. Quarterly reports should be submitted even if there is a delay in payment. Any collaborative agreement must be in writing and submitted to the city of Lansing. This is submitted within the application process. And then no individual with the agency can benefit directly or indirectly from the award. And the same as last year, the application and all the reporting is going to still be web-based and will be submitted online. So next is some important dates for our application. The first is that the availability of this application is going to be this coming Monday, December 11th. And the application due date is going to be Thursday, January 11th of 2024. We will not be able to accept any other applications after this date. The website actually will shut that process down. You won't be able to submit it. So please make sure you submit timely. We will be offering technical assistance if you feel that you have the need, and we can schedule those individually if you'd like. So it will be shutting down at 11:59. Yeah, we will have people in our office available to help up until 5 p.m. If you need assistance with that, you're welcome to contact us. And I see a lot of people that are taking pictures. We will have this presentation. It is available online right now. So it is on the HRC website on the application page. We have the presentation, and then we will also have the recording available too. Yes?
Under the new requirements, it said in-person monitoring. Could you kind of just give me an overview of that, please?
So a couple different things. One, we want to be able to have like a one-on-one with the agencies and kind of get to know you and your program a little bit better. But we will be scheduling auditing as well. And then I'm actually going to be having Matt come up to give you an overview of the application process. And then we will be having a Q&A at the end of the session too. So if you have further questions more in detail, please write them down and you'll have a chance to ask those. Okay. Matt?
Thank you, Amy. So I'm going to demonstrate the application portal. Before I get started though, can I get a show of hands? Who has already used the portal for their application last year? Good, that's great. We've got a lot of people returning. And this is really, this year, it's going to be easier for you because your application, your profile, that information from last year is going to carry over from what you did last year. Please bear with me here because I don't have my mouse. So here we've got the application portal. You're going to notice if you're a current grantee, this looks almost identical to the portal you're using now to submit your quarterly reports. However, it's a different link. It's not the same portal, so don't try to create your application in the same place that you're using to submit your quarterly reports. And so what we're going to do is everyone who's attending today is going to get an email with a link to the FY24 application portal, and that link's also going to be pasted on the city website, so you can grab it from there. And you're going to know you're in the right place because this one says, the 24-25 Human Services Grant application there in the corner. That's your indication that you're in the right place. And again, for any new applicants, this is going to be the only link you're going to need. You don't need one from last year. Your username and your password for any returning applicants is going to be the same one you're using for your quarterly reporting. So if you've got a user account, use that account. We don't want you to set up a new account, or don't set up a new account under a different email address. If you do that, we're not able to copy over your existing application responses and your existing profile. So please use your existing account.
What if the person changed?
Yeah, if the person changed, please contact the HRCS department. We can then update your username on the back end of the system and get that set up for who the contact or who that login needs to be. Just a moment, I do want to say that I'm glad you mentioned that because I would recommend that you use a kind of a generic or a common email, if at all possible, that's not tied to an individual, so that if you do run into a situation where someone leaves or changes their role, that you've got a common user login. Because this login that you're going to use for the application process is the same one you're going to use for receiving your award letters, your contract, and for submitting quarterly reports. So if at all possible, a generic email is recommended. And then also I want to mention before going further is that only one profile needs to exist per organization. If there's more than one profile, your applications, they don't combine together. So again, just one login, one profile per organization. Each organization can have up to 5 applications under it. So really just, again, that one common login. Yeah, you have a question? Fantastic. I'm going to go in, log into the system, and just give you a preview of how of what's changed from last year. Okay, as Amy mentioned, we've moved some things around in the application and the profile from last year. So the governance docs all are going to be uploaded to your agency profile. So if you're submitting multiple applications, you only have to upload those governance docs one time under the profile. And so when I logged into this application portal, you can see any of the returning users. You'll notice you don't see your application down here yet. But I do have my profile, and it's saying that there's action required. Before you can move forward and actually access the application itself, you do have to complete the profile. So this is the same for both new applicants and returning applicants. For returning applicants, your profile carries over all of your responses from last year. Make sure you review the contact information in particular and the email addresses. The contact information is really critical because we use the information out of the system to generate reminders, notices, and to contact you about things such as the contracts, awards, quarterly reporting. So it's really important to have contacts in here. One of the changes we made to the profile, in addition to the governance docs, is asking for a third contact. And so again, just kind of stressing the importance of having contacts in here so that we make sure that the necessary communications are getting to you. And you'll see any question that has an asterisk next to it. These are required fields, meaning that you cannot complete the profile without filling in that field. At any point in time, you can save the field and return to it. So maybe you want to set up your agency and your contacts, but you need some time to grab your governance docs and locate that for upload. You can start it, save it, return to it later, and complete it at another time.
Matt?
Yeah.
When you had suggested to change your login information into a more generic one so it wasn't attached, is that automatically going to default then and change your first contact person and their email address? Or can you have a login that people can get into and then have a specific name and email address attached to that contact?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. So the contacts in the system and the login are totally separate.
Okay.
So they're not connected, so so they're not going to change anything there.
Thank you.
Yep. Right. And so just like on the application last year, it's going to demonstrate how the governance docs uploads work. So we've got a yes/no leader question, yes or NA, not applicable. You respond yes, you're going to get a field to upload the document. We prefer you use PDF files. If you select not applicable for not having a document, just please give us an explanation about why that document's not applicable for your organization. And then also, as Amy mentioned, we're collecting administrative policies and procedures. This, the field works just like the upload for any of the other governance docs. Once you've completed the form, filled out all the questions, made all your uploads, you click on the Create Profile button. Again, this is the same process for both returning and new applicants. Once you create your profile, or save the updates, that expands the system. I'll give you just a minute. If we could just hold the questions towards the end, we'll be sure to answer that at the end of the presentation. So after you create your profile, the rest of the system, the application portion opens. And here you'll notice there's already an existing application there. That is a copy of your FY23 application. So probably about 90% of your answers from last year are already going to be pre-populated in that application. Now there are a couple exceptions, so any field that really absolutely must be updated didn't carry over. Anything else that could likely still be applicable is carrying over. If you're a new organization, you're not going to have an existing application down here. You're going to need to add another, and for new applicants it's going to say get started rather than add another. But it's going to look just the same, you just won't have this box over here. And again, here we've got links to our website, and then for when the time comes, we've got a link to the quarterly reporting template. I'm going to go ahead and open up the application. And here on this screen, I'm going to click open again, saying action required. And here you can see these are all the fields that have carried over from last year. Again, some questions didn't carry over, as I mentioned. Again, relation, it's either a brand new question that we added. Now, the only new questions we added are really specific to getting a prior award, whether that was last year or the year prior, and then collecting information about if you did receive, or if you are a current recipient, so 23-24 would be my most recent award. And then we do ask you your award amount if you'd received that. And we also ask you to upload a copy of your first quarterly report again. So we know this is duplicative, you already submitted it to us, but this allows us to share it with the HRCS advisory board without having to pull things from different parts of the system so that they can review the applications as a whole package. So that's really the reason we're asking for a document that we've already collected from you. Additionally, we asked if you'd received a grant for the 2022-23 year. Because we did not use this system for that grant year, we're asking that you upload a copy of your final report from that grant year, or your quarter 4 report, again, so that that can be shared with the advisory board, so that that can be considered when they're making funding recommendations to the department. Now, those are really the only new questions, but I'm going to spend just a little bit of time kind of going through the application for any of the new applicants, just to give you an idea of how it works. So we do have, as we saw with the earlier fields, we got conditional fields. So as you work through the application, additional questions may open up depending on how you respond to questions. So for instance, here on the program category, you'll get these sub-questions depending on your selections here. So you'll see clicking mental health and click basic needs, it inserts additional fields for me to complete. So the application is dynamic, and it's only going to display the questions that you need to answer. So here we also have a place for a program-specific contact. So your profile is your agency's profile. So we're looking for organization agency contacts. If you do have a unique program contact specific to the application, this is where you fill that out. If it's the same person, you don't need to you don't have to put that contact in there again. We've got text boxes. Here you can see the word count limitations. And again, just like on the profile, any place you see an asterisk, it's going to mean the question is a required question and it must be completed before you can submit the application. Again, for all the returning applicants, your responses are going to be here. You'll want to review your, what you put in last year, refresh anything, update anything that's changed, anything that you're doing differently. And what you can do is, I'd recommend maybe printing out a copy. You can use your browser to print a copy of this screen with your application if you want to review it offline. After me, Tony is going to speak about goals, objectives, and outcomes. We do have a document here, links to examples, kind of our expectations, and Tony is going to go over that in more detail. And similarly to the program categories, the number of objectives per goal is also dynamic, so you're going to see the number of text boxes change depending on your responses here. And then, so we, each program is required to have at least one goal with objectives and evaluation measures, methods. And then if you need to add additional goals, again, just a checkbox here, checkbox, and then it will, again, open that up for you. Next section is about the budget. Here we've got a link to download a copy of the budget template that needs to be completed. Complete that, save it, upload it here in this field. So that's another example of a field that did not carry over from last year. So any of the upload fields, that information did not carry over from last year's application. We expect a fresh budget to be provided. And we'll get the questions at the end. Whether if you do intend to subcontract with another organization, this again is another dynamic field. We want a copy of your collaborative agreement or your subcontract here to understand who you're going to be working with and in what capacity. And another new field that has been added is an opportunity to upload a letter of support or any other supportive documentation that you think would help support your application and communicate the need for the program in the community. You can use this field here to upload kind of supplemental material that would be beneficial for the advisory board and the HRCS staff to know when considering the funding decisions. Similarly to the governance docs, we really prefer you to upload PDF files if at all possible. And we got the authorized representative information, our attestation, here you're signing electronically. And once you're finished, you click Mark Complete, that you can still go back in after marking it complete at this stage. Here you can also save this draft, just like on the profile. You can save it and come back and complete at a later time. It does also save automatically, so if you're kind of working through it and close your browser out, it does periodically save while you're signing into the system and making edits. I'm going to try and click Mark Complete. It's not going to let me. It's going to flag my required fields that I don't have answers to yet. So again, you cannot mark it complete until it's finished. I'm going to close that. Go ahead and save my draft. Okay. After you've finished the application and marked it complete, this submit button will become an active button, and at that point, after you click this submit button, the application's out and you're no longer able to modify your application at that point. And then as Amy mentioned, the deadline is January 11th. The portal will stop accepting applications at midnight at the 11th. So if you've got something pending and draft, you've got to hit that submit button. Don't forget that step. That's critical to actually making sure we get your application. And I guess next I'm going to pass it on to Tony. Are there any quick questions that you need to address? Yeah.
Yeah, the multiple applications, so we did multiple applications last year. They were funded, so how are we going to know which application is which in the system?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to my homepage. So your application, right now mine says HRCS sample application. That's actually the program name of your application.
Okay,
So you'll see your specific program name on each one.
okay, great.
Is there a size that, I know the policies, maximum policies. So I'm wondering, okay, you got both, so there's only one place to submit it, so what's the size? Sure.
Yeah, there's not effective. So if you're submitting PDF documents, there is a size limit, but it is in the hundreds of megabytes. So it's unlikely. If you are running into an issue, contact the office. We can arrange a way for that to be submitted if you do run into that. But it's a couple hundred megabytes that is the size limit. So most PDF files are, it's unlikely that you're going to exceed that with the PDF file.
Can we compress it? Or,
If you would like, yeah, you could put it in a zip file or something. Yeah, that'd be, yeah, and that would be, yeah, that's a great suggestion. If you've got multiple files and you don't, maybe don't have the capability to combine PDF files into one, you could create a zip file, group them all together, and then just upload that zip file. All right, I'm gonna sign off here and pass it over to Tony.
Good morning.
Morning.
Glad you're all here today. It's really nice to see people in person after all this time. Great to see you all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about goals and objectives and outcomes. A lot of this is not, brand new information to many of you. So we'll just hit some highlights and talk about the way that we do them and the structure that we use. I know there's lots of different ways that people can do this. Some people call objective strategies, other, use other terms, metrics rather than outcome indicators. So just so you know, some of these words are interchangeable. If we have questions about that, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll talk about that. So the other thing is, as far as questions, probably I'll just, we're running ahead of time, right, Amy? So because of that, I'll take your questions specifically about outcomes and objectives, and then we're also going to review the budget and just answer a couple of questions related to that. Just like to point out some things. Some of this is already in writing when you get it. But reading instructions is one of those things we sort of breeze by when we're busy. Understandable, but there's really good information there. Urge you to take a look at it. So first, to talk about goals. The way that we do the goals is we don't make them this specific, measurable, and so on for goals. We're looking for something broad, visionary, an overall description of what you hope this program will do. So it's essentially your vision for this program. And it may have different components. You're allowed in the online application to submit up to three goals for your program and up to 5 objectives for each goal. So that usually covers, when we set that up in the structure, it covered 90% of the kind of applications we were receiving. So we ask that you try to work within that structure. So I usually, when trying to create goals, you're thinking about what you want to accomplish for your participants. And so I just think about the key questions that you're asking yourself with the goals. What is the problem you're hoping to solve? what is lacking in your community and what gap are you trying to address, and who is being left behind in our community. That helps you to focus in on, some of the most crucial parts of what is going on. So we're assuming, because you're in the community every day, you're running into the people that you work with, you have a pretty good sense of what is missing, what is not being provided to people. Now, you may have a long-standing program, so you're already addressing these gaps, but that's the part of the application where we do want you to do your due diligence to find the data that supports the work that you're doing and the need that you are identifying. So the needs statement is a really important part of your application when it's being scored and reviewed. We want to know that you have really looked at the data and that you can show that there's a very big need in our community for your services. So the goal again is a broad general statement, and in formulating it, you may want to start with your needs assessment. I know we all do these things differently. This is just how I think about it. So you're doing your needs assessment, you're looking at what does this group of people need, and you may research some best practices to address those needs. Because I know that we all are part of different networks often. When we're doing different work out in the community, we may be part of a state network or a regional or a national network. A lot of the good information is there, where they do a lot of the bigger data research. So take a look at that and compare your practices to the best practices that are being recommended in your field. And then you want to zero in on locally, Lansing, what's going on here, and what can you do to address that need. There's also the need to set up evaluation right at the beginning. So as you're thinking about your goals and your objectives, you want to think about how you can measure them. And what information will that give you? So we've got a couple of examples up here. Again, people have already stated that the slides are on the website right now, so you can take a look at those examples. But the ones, we pulled these ones out because it isn't necessarily obvious what the service is that is connected to this goal. The goal being to assist family caregivers to maintain emotional and physical well-being, to improve their ability to care for a family member at home. Well, what this service actually provides is daycare, adult daycare services to people with disabilities or other vulnerable adults. And what that does is it assists the caregiver at home where they live to have time to take care of their daily life while the person is attending the daycare program. So that's just an example of how it's not always obvious, and you have to make those links in your application between the goals and the objectives that you establish and what the services are going to be providing. So you can sort of see that the second example talks about elder abuse and neglect, and I think about things like, there's multiple agencies addressing some of our social problems in the community, right? You want to understand, where do you fit in? Are you providing something similar, different, unique, as compared to the other people providing services to that population? So you want to be part of collaborating with other organizations that do similar things, of course, and hopefully you are not all providing exactly the same service unless it's needed in all 4 quadrants of our city or something such as that. So, all right, so just to move forward, when you think about all the different people addressing this issue in the community, and if you don't know who they are, then that's a bit of research that you really should conduct for yourself. Take a look. We sort of assume that everybody in this community knows each other because we're a small community, But I would say that's probably not true. So the more you can network with others, work together, and we hope that we're going to be able to encourage that in this coming year, to bring people together who might be doing similar things. So you can learn from each other, you can support each other, and we can ensure that there's, reduced duplication of service. So, to move into talking about objectives then, and you can see at the bottom of this slide that we do ask that you use the SMART rule for objectives, so that they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So that's the kind of thing that we look for when we're reviewing your objectives. Now, is it possible that you can write not a great objective and still get funded? Yes, that is possible, because what happens is that when the people are reviewing, you may not get a very good score for those objectives, but they really like the fact that you're addressing this particular population, or that you're going to provide services to address it, and then we may work with you after that to refine and improve objectives. In fact, I did want to say to the returning applicants, if what you submitted, because we're going to copy over your last year's application, and give us a couple days to do that, please, before you jump in there. But if you look at the objectives, please compare that to the contract that you have with us that was written, because oftentimes we, through that process, are helping you refine your objectives. Sometimes people will give us, they'll give us something that sounds like an outcome for their objective, or vice versa. And usually by the time we get to the contracting, we've worked with you to try to, straighten out that sequence, that logic model sequence. So the objectives then are what we consider to be the narrow, precise, measurable type of statements. And if you can't figure out, you may write a really beautiful objective, but you can't figure out how am I going to measure that? And you can't come up with anything. You and your team are really trying, and I would suggest you start over with a new objective, because measuring it is really important. And some really just can't be measured. So your objective should include what's being provided and to whom, to how many people, and by when. So that follows the sequence of the SMART objective. They should be realistic and able to be accomplished in the grant year. So next slide, please. They've already taken care of it? Yes. Okay. So these are some examples that we've created in the past. And some of them, some of these are better objectives than others. And we can talk about that. You may read it and say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't meet this one or that one. But take a look at the last two on this list. The number 4, if you will, train 500 student volunteers, that one. So this one is specific. It shows who the participants will be and how many will be involved. It shows what activities they'll be engaged in, and that it's time-bound and measurable. So 500 might be a pretty ambitious number to serve, and that would stand out for me if I'm reviewing this. But because it's your target, you would need to provide evidence in the proposal in other places that it is realistic, and it's based on maybe your previous program history, or that you have a group of, say, 1,000 students to choose from, and you believe you'll be able to enlist at least half of them in your program. But we do really ask that you try to stay realistic. The last objective on this list, this one is specific, speaks to eligible households, the who and the number, and that may be further defined in the needs statement, and it lists the specific services to be provided, And it's enhanced by stating the proposed outcome of the services to maintain permanent housing. But it does not include a time frame which would improve this statement. So please note that the objectives are not your work plan. We don't need to know every single activity that you're doing in order to make your program run. We're more interested in the services that you're providing directly to people. So the direct work is what we're hoping you will use to create your objectives. And just to note that on the quarterly reports, the objectives are listed by the numbers served, or major program accomplishments are discussed in the narrative of the quarterly report. But we also want to see how the outcomes are progressing. Usually this is by a % of people served who demonstrate the benefits of your program. So that's the big question and keep in mind the achievable standard. If you receive an award, you'll be expected to achieve the numbers that you've listed. So please do not overpromise and be realistic, especially if it's a first-year project. If you don't have any baseline or any previous program history to go on, be conservative in your numbers because the expectation is that you're going to do what you said you would do in terms of service. So our outcomes then answer the question, because people are engaged in your program, how will they benefit? And are those benefits related to your program activities? Can you show the connections between your activities and the outcomes? They're usually at a couple of different levels. We have the short-term objectives, the short-term outcomes, which is changes in knowledge, opinions, skills, or aspirations. The medium-term outcomes are changes in behavior that may result from the change in knowledge or skills. So it's kind of the next level up. And then longer-term outcomes, which are bigger changes either in condition or status. So back to our two examples. This number 4, I'm sorry, they're not numbered here, but if you count 4 and you look over at the outcomes, you can see what I'm referencing. It lists gaining new knowledge or skills from the peer juror training. So that would be an initial or short-term outcome. But if you followed up with those same students over time, you may be able to establish longer-term outcomes that you can later find a way to measure and report them in a future document. So that is the kind of thing that can build over time. For the last outcome here, the program plans to follow up the household at a 7-month interval to see if they've maintained their permanent housing. So this could be seen as a change that altered their status from unhoused to housed. So that's a pretty significant and important outcome affecting, every aspect of their lives. So it's very exciting for us, I think, all together to show the positive impacts that your programs continue to make in our communities. And so spending some time refining your objectives and outcomes is well worth your while. So as time goes by, you may use evidence gathered to further refine your programs and focus in on what works along with best practice. So best practice research that's out there, we urge you to take a look at, try to tie it in to the type of services that you're providing. One quick note is about your outcome indicators. This is the specific data you're going to track to measure the success of your outcome. And then you'll establish a target. How many of the people you serve do you believe will be able to achieve that target? Again, try to be realistic. Let's make it attainable, especially when you're new. It's a first-year program. You want to build some history so you can see if you over-succeed, wonderful. So we use the number and % often. The number is really not just the number served, but it's the number of people who achieved the outcome. Because Obviously, these two are related, but we do ask you to report on the objectives separately in the quarterly report. And your evaluation methods, I know many people have a lot of experience with this, and maybe we can do a seminar at some point coming up either this year or next to talk about different data methods that people use. You can learn a lot from other agencies and techniques that they have used. But some common ones are the pre and post tests. Some academic progress measures are useful. Participant surveys, especially self-assessments, or interviews and questionnaires that are done that we can measure the knowledge or the skills gained. All right, so we're going to shift gears then and shift to our next slide, talk a little bit about the budget. Did anybody have any comments or questions about what we just reviewed related to objectives or outcomes? Great, okay. Again, I just want to say if we worked with you and made revisions for your contracts, please take a look at those and compare them when you open up your application from last year. Because continuous quality improvement is really what we're all about. All right. So as Matt stated, the document needs to be downloaded. There's a budget template. It will be a link in the application itself. It will open up. You need to save a copy and then work on it offline from there. All right, so then when it's all completed, you can upload it. So just want to point out a couple of things. So this is that instructions sheet. This is really worth your while to read through. So I'm just going to point out a couple of things. You can't see it on this slide, but there's 4 tabs when you open up the budget document, the budget template. And the first one is this one. Now you can easily breeze by this. Believe me, I have done the same. But if you will come back and take a look at this, please note there's 2 budget pages that have to be completed. We did get some incomplete budgets last year. Know that this was worth 15 points of the score. So if you missed an entire page, you can imagine that would negatively affect your score. So please keep in mind you need to do both pages. Also keep in mind that HRCS grants do not fund 100% of any program. So you do need to look for and search out additional funding sources, whether that's donations to your agency, whether that's other grants, whether what you're providing or proposing to us is actually funded, 80% by the state grant, and you want to use the local money to supplement that for things that are not covered. A lot of those different scenarios are possible. So if you plan to use or share the city award funds with another agency, please go ahead and create that sub-agreement or subcontractor collaborative agreement with that agency, and then it will need to be uploaded as part of the application. Because of that, that is because we have to review every agency who gets any funds from the city. So we may have to reach out to them and request their governance documents like you submitted in the profile. And just a note that please ensure there's no conflicts of interest in receiving city funds in your organization. And that would mean staffing or board members or anyone like that who has some type of close ties to the city in some way. Please ensure that those conflicts do not exist. All right. So we have the next slide, please. All right, so this is a sample, and that is right in the budget template. So we've made a listing of how you can use this document. We show how the calculations work. There are formulas in here. They will help you if you don't delete them. But I know that that happens too. So if it should happen, just be sure it all adds up correctly, okay, when you turn it in and finish it. So we just keep this simple. We just have the 3 categories: personnel, fringes, and operating. So pretty much anything outside of an employee in your organization, you may be spending, a certain number of hours on this grant. Consultants and those types of people assisting in your project, if they're not employees, they go under operating. That's often a question that we get, so I just wanted to clarify that. And then supplies and other types of things will go under operating. So you can take a look at this example at your leisure. I don't think there's anything specific else that I needed to point out except the totals. When you come down to the total at the very bottom of the page, that's your total project cost. And then to the far right is what of that cost you're going to charge to the city grant, to the city award. And that equals your actual total award. So if we go to the next page, budget page 2. Thank you. You can see this is where we ask for all your sources of funds. So the very first line should be that amount that says under City of Lansing should be the total amount that you are charging, that you are asking for in the award. Okay, so that slot, that number equals, if you flip back to the last budget page, your total cost from the city. Okay, and then if you flip back again to this page, you can see the total project cost at the very bottom. That number must equal the total project cost from the first page. Okay? If you keep those things in mind, you're going to have this. I see Kim nodding her head because this is what we often find in conflict, and so we're having to get on the phone with you and get a new budget submitted and so on. So those are the most common things that we see, and just know that the budget page 2, these are examples where we list United Way, Ingham County, and so on. You can take those off when you get those. Don't leave them in there. Put your own sources of funds there, okay? All right, well, I hope that information will be useful to you in submitting a successful application. And I'd like to introduce our colleague, Kim Gillespie, our contract coordinator.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So my name is Kimberly Gillespie, as she previously stated. I have been tasked with providing an overview of the application process. But I'd like to ask you all to do me a favor, if you don't mind. Are you guys gonna help me out this morning?
Yeah.
All right, I'd ask that you please hold your questions until I am done. We have slated a time for Q&A. I know that's one of the things that you all look forward to is asking questions and getting answers. So if you could help me out this morning and hold those questions, I'll be sure to get those questions answered once we are done. I believe in sharing the wealth, right, and making it a collaborative effort. So we're gonna all invite the team back up and we're all gonna be available to answer your questions once I'm done. So hang on in there with me. We are at the finish line. So after you have accessed the application portal, you've created your profile, you've uploaded your governance docs, and completed the application, what's next? So what's next is you should expect a decision notice. Applicants will be notified of decisions the first week of June, okay? For those agencies that unfortunately are not approved, there are no additional tasks. But don't lose heart, don't lose faith. You will have the opportunity to apply again the following year. Now for those agencies that are approved, there are a few things that you should know. If the amount of your award letter differs from the amount you originally requested, you will be required to submit a new budget. If necessary, you may also need to update those goals, objectives, and outcomes. so that the award is enough to carry them out. Please note that a signed contract and updated budget will be required by August 30th. Number 2, once HRCS has drafted your contract, provided it to you, you have reviewed it and agree with everything it entails, the contract is returned to us and goes through the approval process. Once there is a fully executed contract, the first payment is issued. So payments are issued in 2 separate payments. The first payment after the fully executed contract, and then the second payment after the first quarterly report is received. And then finally, after the fully executed contract is in full effect, what is the expectation of you, the grantee? Well, I'm glad you asked. All 4 quarterly reports are now mandated, okay? So for my agencies that have done this before, you ready? Quiz. What are the due dates for the quarterly reports?
The 20th.
The 20th of October?
January, April, July.
Woo-hoo! You're so bad. Good job. Yes. Reports are due October 20th, January 20th, April 20th, and July 20th. So let's go back to that word mandated. That's simply stated, officially required. That means that they are required. Usually when you have something that is required and that requirement is not met, there are consequences. So I am urging you, please, to make sure that you get those quarterly reports in. Secondly, when you assess your program and you realize, this is not quite working the way that I thought it would, and you're unable to meet the goals and objectives that you set forth, you can work with your contract manager to make an amendment, okay? This will ensure that you are compliant with the contract. And amendments can be made at any time up until April. So April will be the last month in which you can make those amendments. All right, so that concludes our presentations. At this time, I'm going to ask HRCS to please come up and join me. And we're going to invite you to ask questions. Tony, Amy, Matt, Nicole. Oh, yeah. And I know some questions were asked earlier. However, we certainly want to give you the opportunity to address any questions that we may have not answered previously. So please, by the raising of your hands and the acknowledgement, we will begin. Here's Hannah.
I have a question about, talking before, when we were talking about the education services, and so I was thinking, at Women's Center, we provide mental health counseling. We've got the people make this mile long, and we also have to make this mile long. Because should we do a combined application, or should we submit separate ones? If we're both doing the exact same service, we can both have a long list.
So the question regarding if you should combine programs with different agencies.
Well, yeah, we're both gonna be asking for the same, and I'm using that as a topic, but like I just know that I was just thinking exactly earlier, we were talking about the serious need for mental health counseling. Should we submit like one application for both agencies, or should we each submit our own separate?
So each agency will submit their own application. If you want to collaborate them and do like some sort of investigation and submit the same data, that would justify why there's multiple programs for the same need. But each agency will submit their own application.
Can I ask two? It's a two-parter, is that okay? If you were a project that applied last year but you were not funded, will your profile show up in there if you get to enter a new one? And second is, for those that are not funded, can we get feedback?
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you repeat the first question?
I'm sorry. So if you applied last year for, oh, thank you. I need my outside voice. I'm not a mom, but. So if you applied last year but were not funded, will your profile show up there? Or do you get to enter a whole new one?
Any returning applicants will have their existing information pulled over. So if you did apply, your profile will be there.
Okay. And if you are not funded in '24, can you get feedback on how to improve?
We're getting a nod, yes.
Thank you, because last year, I don't think, that would be really helpful for people, especially the smaller faith communities. That could get
I would
feedback.
say if you would like feedback, reach out to our department.
Okay,
You can supply that.
okay, thank you, thanks.
I would add also that we cannot do that during the application
Exactly,
process.
no, I
Okay,
understand for
So
conflicts of
we
interest.
have to do that after all of them are submitted at a different point of the year.
Well,
So,
and I
because
know.
we can't bias the
Oh, no,
the process.
no, I understand, it's just, you know, people have a process they want to go through, so it's important. I don't know if people know that it's important, so, thank you.
Sure, just give us a call.
Yeah, once you get your decision letter, if you have questions, you can contact us.
Hi, I just have a question. It actually pertains to this year. We we're awarded and had a revised budget, but then on budget page 2, we listed like where the resources were coming from, and somebody decided not to give the money they promised, so we changed that. Does that need to be updated? So we got it from a different source.
Yeah, if there's any changes from the original amounts that you were receiving, I would reach out to your contract manager so that we can update that.
Update it, okay.
Because when we do the evaluations for the program and the outcomes, objectives, whether or not you're meeting those,
Yeah.
if there is a discrepancy in that, we want to make sure we can notate as to why. And
Okay.
lack of funding could be that. We would reach out to you and kind of collaborate on that.
We covered it, we just had to get it from a different source.
Yeah, so I would reach out to your contract manager so we can make notes on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Given all these changes, how precise do you need our financial statements to be? Can they be weekly or monthly P&Ls? Do you need to see everything?
Can you kind of elaborate on the?
Well, all right, last year we successfully submitted, and I submitted a financial statement that included pretty much every penny that we'd spent in the previous year. Does it still need to be that precise, or can we, because you mentioned in the objectives section, not needing to know every little thing that you do. So along those same lines, my question just had to be, would a weekly P&L statement be enough, or what exactly would suffice? I mean, I'm happy to provide everything.
So the comment that Tony made about not needing like your walk by of everything that you plan to do,
Of course.
that was more of your program itself.
Okay.
Financial wise, I would say submit what you can. The more information we have, the better. Because it may delay the process if we need to reach out and ask for additional stuff. Tony, would you want to add anything to that?
So it sounds like you might be talking about your quarterly financial reports, because we only request financial information on a current grant 4 times a year.
But last year wasn't part of the application, financial statements.
Okay, so you're talking about an upload in
Yes.
governance documents.
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
Yeah, that's all right. I was just having a little confusion about what exactly. Yes, we would like it's either an audit statement or a detailed financial statement that we should have uploaded when you do your governance documents.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Hi, so this might be a very basic, but I'm not sure of it. So if there's a 501c that already has been given a grant from HRSC, and now they're creating a new type of agency, I think
it was the first gentleman who spoke about you can have up to 5. So I'm just trying to wonder, if you have a 501c, you're going to do now different work, but this same 501c, and you're going to request a grant to help fund this. Is that going to be under the same kind of umbrella of the first one? Does that make sense? I don't know enough about it yet. I'm still learning, so.
Would it be the same TIN or EIN for the agency?
I will ask, I'm not sure. I know it's the same 501c.
So as long as it's actually the same organization and it's not a separate tax ID number, you should put it underneath the same application profile. Because within the profile itself, it does ask for the tax ID number. So if that is different, you will need to submit a new profile for the new tax ID number.
Okay, thank you.
And I do want to add on to that, if that's the situation, you would also need a unique login to the system for that new organization. Because each login can only have a single profile attached to it. So one login per organization or per tax ID number.
Questions for you? They are included, meaning that they were implemented prior to, and all of a sudden they are included, and under somebody else's control. They will no longer use their previous tax registration, but the new organization's tax.
Yes, that's correct. We've had agencies merge, and that's all fine and good. We do ask you to tell us this is happening, so that we can get with you and make sure we get all bureaucratic paperwork stuff figured out. Okay?
I think I can speak about enough. So confirming the point about the City of Lansing employees, so that's whether it's the park ranger or whether it's the manager of a department, they can't be an employee of the board of directors.
They can't be, yeah. So that was a new MCL, which was notated on the slide as well. They can no longer be a board member. So you would either not apply or they would need to resign.
I have a quick question about the annual financial statement. So our FY23 annual financial statement would probably not be completed in time for the submission process. Is it acceptable to submit the FY22 year-end financial statement?
Yes, ask for your latest one.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No, what's going on here?
I just want to piggyback on a question that Rebecca had asked, and that is if you are collaborating with another organization, meaning that they're going to take part in some aspect of the program that you're proposing, that they wouldn't have to submit a separate application, but they need to include a letter of collaboration in your application process. We need to be able to see what portions or what part they're playing in your application process. So under those circumstances, you would need two. And we do encourage collaborations, so.
All right, seeing none. Thank you all. I just wanted to say one more thing. I want you to know that as I look around this room, I am wowed by the greatness in this room. I'm wowed by the work that you do on an everyday basis. Everyone in this room is great because everyone can serve. On behalf of HRCS, our director, Kimberly A. Coleman, we'd like to thank you for the time that you shared with us today. We appreciate everything you do, every day you do it. And if I leave you with this, I would say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Have a great day, everybody.
Each
Each year we have 1.35% of City of Lansing revenues to share with the community, with the human service organizations that provide vital services to our community.